Alright guys, just like in most of the graphical softwares, SketchUp's workspace has three main segments. In the first segment, we would get familiar options such as files or edit, and basically other options that, as I said, we would usually see in most of the graphical softwares. Then we get two types of menu. First one would be this floating menu, which I can freely move around and basically just locate wherever I want. And if I do a double click on this blue part here, it would go back to where it was in the first place. And a very important part that has been added to SketchUp quite recently would be this default tray menu, guys. Well, as you can see, it contains many different trays, each containing different items. And to be honest, we're going to work with this a lot. Oh, and by the way, guys, from the Window tab, we would be able to manage our default tray menu. Next segment would be measurements. Down here, this part would basically give us essential information during our projects. And in addition to all of this, guys, if you just started your work on the software, if you are at a beginner's level, I highly recommend going through the hint segment in the software as well. Because this could help you plenty. Like, you can get a lot of information and instructions regarding how to work with the software. Alright guys, just like in all the other graphical softwares, this part of the workspace is called the viewport. This is where we do the drawings, this is where we do the sketching process, and just like in all the other versions of the software, we got a personage here as well. Now, the personage has an auxiliary role to it, like it helps us convey and control the scale without drawing anything, okay? Now guys, the next segment is called Model Infos. This is very important, and to be honest, we're going to work with this quite a lot during our projects. Just like in all the other 3D graphical softwares, when we want to start a project, we need to specify the unit system first. And well, SketchUp is not an exception. So from Model Infos, I'm going to open up units. Oh, and by the way, we have another way for accessing this actually. From the Window tab, we have Model Infos here. Now, as I said, let's try specifying the unit system. First, we can set up a format. We can go with decimal, and we obviously have other formats such as architectural. If we go with architectural, our units would be measured in inches. And this is actually quite common in countries such as America or Canada. But mostly in other countries, such as in Europe, people would choose a decimal format and a metric system. Now, next up, we have the display precision, guys. Well, as you can guess from its name, we would be able to control the exact precision that we want for our works, and we can do so in for length, for area, and for volume completely separately. By the way, guys, there's a wrong idea regarding the precision in SketchUp. Some people believe that SketchUp is not quite of a precise software, but, well, this is actually not true, because just like AutoCAD, SketchUp is quite precise, it's quite accurate. Alright guys, next up we have Enable Length Snapping. This is a very important option, but we're going to talk about this later on. For now, just know that this is very, very important. Next up we have Angle Units. The precision that we would usually and mostly need for this part would be up to 1 decimal number. I don't think we need more. And yeah, I guess that would be all regarding specifying the unit system. Although it's quite simple, it's very essential for us to specify the unit system as precisely as possible. Now, as I said, we got two types of menu. Let's see how we can manage them. From the View tab, I'm going to select Toolbars. Now guys, here, the first thing that I always recommend would be deactivating or disabling this option, large icons. Guys, this way we would basically just create more elbow room in our workspace. And well, we should be doing this actually if we are working with a small monitor. To put this whole thing simply, guys, later on we'll be adding more items, we'll be adding more plugins even, and well, we can really use an extra space here. Alright guys, after doing this, we can start managing the menus, and by managing the menus, I mean managing the items that we have inside the menus. Now, take a look at this, guys. By default, Getting Started is activated here, but I actually recommend disabling this option, and instead we can enable or activate Large Tool Set. Now, these items that we have here, or you know what, let's put it in this way. At this stage of our work, this toolbar will do. Let me close this down. Okay. Now I'm going to do a double click on this to locate it on this side. You know, guys, basically what I'm doing right now is customizing the viewport, or we can say somehow organizing the workspace, because this is actually very important if you want to work as fast as possible or even as precisely as possible. All right, moving on. Alright guys, obviously when we want to start a project, we need to select or choose a template. Now let's say we selected a wrong template. For example, a template in which the unit system is set on inches. In such cases, from window we can select preferences, and then in here we can select a template as our default template. And I actually recommend using either architectural or metric architectural. Now, remember guys, for projects such as a piping project, you need to work with inches. And also in another case, as I mentioned before, if you're working in a Western country such as America or Canada, again, you need to work with inches as your unit system. All right? Guys, when we are working with lines, for example, when we are drawing them, we are in fact working with edges. Now, in order to draw or sketch the lines, or as I said, in order to sketch the edges, we actually need to be familiar with some concepts such as snaps or trackings. If you are not, do not worry. We're going to talk about all of them. Now, guys, first off, we need to activate the line command. I can do this by selecting the line from this toolbar, or I can select it from the Draw tab up here, or I can just press L on the keyboard. Now, in AutoCAD, when we press L, we need to press Enter as well, but here we don't really need to do that. When we press L, the command would be activated. Now, down here, we can see a hint. It says that we need to select a starting point. Now, obviously, my first click on the viewport would become the starting point, and immediately afterwards, this black line would be activated for me, and I can set it basically however I want. Now, when I move the line around, guys, I'm in fact changing its course, and on different courses, the line gets different colors. For example, I'm going to try fixing the line vertically like this. As you can see, it says on blue axis, meaning the line is being set or sketched on the blue axis, which is parallel to our Z course, guys. For now, let's try another course, for example, this time the red axis. Now, currently, guys, when I move the cursor around, the course of the line changes. How can I prevent this from happening? I want the course, the direction to be fixed up. Well, it is quite simple. I can use the arrow keys on the keyboard. And by the way, this is actually a new feature in SketchUp. For example, by pressing the right key, the line would be fixed up on the X course, as you can see. And I can make sure that the course won't change anymore. Now I'm going to type down 5, as in 5 meters of length, and press Enter. Done. As you can see, I've got this line here, which has 5 meters of length. Now let's try another course like the green course. For doing so, for fixing the line on the green course, I just need to press the left key. And I don't need to hold anything. Just pressing the key once will do. As for the length, give me 7 meters. Done. Now I'm going to attach these endpoints to complete this triangular form. How about a vertical line? We need the line to be set on the Z course. For doing so, we need the up key. Well, more precisely, we need to push the up key. As you can see, it says that the line is being set on the blue course, on the blue axis. This time for the length, give me 10 meters. Here we go. Now, once again, I'm going to connect the endpoints to create another triangular form, this time a volumized one. I guess we can actually call this a pyramid. Now, take a look at this line here, this edge down here. Let's say we want to set another line perpendicular to this one, or even another line parallel to it, okay? Now, let's say this will be our starting point. Now, I'm going to move my cursor on this line here, and now this line should be set inside my software's short memory. All right? Now, immediately, if I press the down key on the keyboard, I'll get this line parallel to the previous one. See? All right, so this was for setting a parallel line. How about a perpendicular one? Well, again, I need to move the cursor on this line here, hold for a few seconds, and then press the down key a couple of times. And the result would be this perpendicular line. All right? Now, how about the face here, guys? What if we wanted a line perpendicular to the face? Well, first select the face, then press L. First click here. Now move the cursor around a little bit so that the face would be recognized as the base. Right, after we got this on face message, it means that we are able to set our perpendicular line, let's say by 3 meters. There we go. All done. Okay, guys, now let's talk about tracking. There's a diagonal line here. From this endpoint, I'm going to add another line by 4 meters. Now, as you can see, I've got this green line here. I want its endpoint to be completely aligned with the endpoint that I have here. We got a couple of ways for doing this. One way would be extending the line all the way to the point that we'll get this from point message. And well, as you can see, alongside this message, we'll get this, black vertex, which means that these endpoints are completely aligned. Now, as for the second way, when we want to draw this green line, we can press and also hold the Shift key. By doing so, the line would be completely locked or fixed on this course, as you can see. After this happened, we can go ahead and do a single click on the endpoint or on this vertex that we have here. And well, the result would be completely the same as before. Now, let me give you another example. Another line here by 3 meters. I want my next line to be set on the red course, and I want its endpoint to be aligned with this vertex here. So again, I'm going to press and hold the Shift key and click on the point. Done. See? These are completely aligned, and we have no problems here. Alright guys, for our next example, let's say our precision is set on 2 decimal numbers. And now if I go ahead and try setting this line here, each 1 cm, I'll get a snap throughout the line. Now, let's go back to units again. And remember, enable snapping. We said that we're going to talk about this later on. I'm going to set this on 0.1. Let's see what's going to happen. Now, I'm going to try sketching another line, guys. Take a look at the length down here. What's happening here is that the length is actually being increased 10 cm by 10 cm. I mean 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, 200, and so on. Not only this is an important and, well, quite interesting feature, it's actually quite necessary. I mean, we might use this a lot during a project, for example, when it comes to setting the axis when we are working on a plan, guys. Now, although, as we just saw, we can set this on 10 cm by 10 cm, but, well, I actually recommend setting this on 1 cm. Okay? Next point that we can talk about, guys, would be regarding these snapping points that we have on the lines that we would set in SketchUp. Let's see what they are. By the way, they are quite useful. I'm going to press L on the keyboard. Now I'm going to set this line here. I'm going to move my cursor on this black line, and as you can see, I'll get this specific symbol, this red square symbol. And then when I move the cursor on the endpoints instead of that red square, I'll see another symbol, a green circle. And then right in the middle, I'll see a blue circle. Now, each of these symbols represents something. If I go ahead and divide this line here, this single line, into 2 segments, into 2 edges, because now we have 2 separate edges, we would get 2 separate midpoints. And well, obviously, the same happens to the endpoints. Okay? Now, let's try something. Let's say we want to connect these 2 lines here exactly from their midpoints. Okay, let's see how we can do that. Well, to find their midpoints, we can easily use their snaps, their midpoint snaps, okay? And well, we can just easily do the same for the endpoints. See? Oh, and by the way, guys, we got another snapping point, another symbol, this time within a form of this diamond, which means that we are working on a face. In other words, our line starting point would be set right on this face here, okay? Now, there's another type of line that we can talk about, which is called freehand. Now, exactly like before, we can either select it from this toolbar or from the Draw tab, we can select freehand, all right? Now, again, just like a line, just like what we had in line, we need to select a starting point. But this time, we can just freely drag the cursor around and basically draw however we want. Now, what's interesting about this is the fact that if we check the entity info, we'll find out that this line is being set here as a curve. We can even find out how many segments it has or even its length. By the way, guys, this is not the best thing that we can do here. Later on, we're going to see how we can use some specific plugins to create more smooth and better curves for our works. For now, though, let's just move on to another discussion. I guess we can talk about arcs. Yeah, let's talk about arcs. Well, again, exactly like before, we can either select the arc from this toolbar here or from the Draw tab up here. And, well, as you can see, we actually have several types of arc that we can work with. And the most important and useful arc for us would be the 2-point arc, which, as you can see, has a shortcut key A, all right? So, yeah, we can either select the arc from that Draw tab up there or press A on the keyboard. All right, after activating the command, I need to select 2 points. Number 1 would obviously be the starting point, and number 2 represents the end point. And after we selected them both, we'll get the arc. Here we go. And then by moving the cursor, we can specify the exact form that we want for the arc. Currently, the axis on which we're working is the green axis. We can use this for example, completing or creating a plan. And then by pushing down the up key on the keyboard, our course would change to the Z course, exactly like what we had in the lines. Now let's say I'm going to set the height on 3 meters. The thing is, we got so many segments. This is not a smooth arc. This is not a smooth curve that we need for architectural projects. What should we do then? Now, first, let's check the entity info. Let's see what we have here real quick. First and foremost, this is an arc, obviously. We got the radius and also the number of segments, which is 12, okay? Now, due to this number, as I said, this curve, this arc is not a smooth one. We can easily detect or see all of its segments one by one. As I said, we need to convert this arc, we need to try to convert this arc into a better one, a smoother one. For doing so, I can add more segments. For example, right now we got 12, give me 40 instead. See, now this is an arc that we can work with. This is better. This is more smooth. To put this whole thing simply, this arc is most suitable, this curve is most suitable for an architectural project. Now, guys, when we activate the command, the arc command, the number of segments by default would be set on 12, okay? Well, we can easily change this before we set the arc. For example, instead of 12, I'm going to go with 20. Yeah. And the rest would be exactly as before. The starting point, the end point, and the arc. Now, if I select the arc and check the entity info, as you can see, the number of segments is set on 20. Right, everyone, the next point that we can discuss here would be regarding auto trim. Auto trim is related to arcs. Let's say we have a form like this L-shaped form. I'm going to select this line first. And then I need another point, let's say here. As you can see, an arc is getting shaped up. When it turns purple, click here and done. The line got trimmed up automatically, and as a result, we got this arc. Okay, let me give you another example. Give me a line up here. Okay, press A. Now, again, select the first point, the starting point, and then just keep on moving on the second line until the arc turns purple. When we saw the purple color, it means that the arc is ready. We can just click to trim the lines and create the arc. So from all of this, we can get that the color is quite important. Let me give you another example. Give me this arc. For the radius, I'm going to go with 2 meters. Now, I'm going to set another arc starting from this endpoint. Well, the thing is, guys, the next arc would be created here quite automatically based on the vertex that we have right at the endpoint of the previous arc. And well, if we take a look at this, it says tangents at vertex, which actually proves my point. Now we got 2 arcs which are completely tangent together. Guys, there's another way that we can use for controlling the number of segments. We can use Control plus or Control minus on the keyboard. Let me show this to you. I'm going to activate the arc command again, and I'm going to use Control plus to increase the number of the segments in this arc. Let's say, for example, 40 segments. Here we go. All right, so this will be one arc. Now again, activate the command. And this time I'm going to use Control minus to reduce the number of segments all the way to 5. Right. I'm going to set the arc here. Now, guys, up to this point, we talked about 2-point arcs. We have another arc here as well. Let's see what this one is. This command will give us this schematic protractor that we can use to specify the center point of our arc. For example, let's say here, I want this point to be the center point. All right, next up, we need to specify a radius, say, for example, 5 meters. And then I can move the cursor to set the arc. And then again, in the entity info, we would see the same parameters as before, and, well, we can control them however we want. Okay, let me give you another example, another arc. This time, though, on another course. I'm going to press the left key on the keyboard, center point here, then 4 meters of radius, and then I need to specify an angle as well. For example, 125 degrees. Now let's increase the segments again to make this arc softer, like 40 segments again. Right, all good. We have another arc that we can talk about. It is called 3-point arc. Again, we can find it up here in our Draw tab. I'm going to select 3-point arc. Let me show you how this one works. I need a triangle here. I'm going to activate the arc for the segments. Give me 40 again. Let's say we want an arc and we want it to go through all of these 3 vertices. So, first point, second point, and the third one. And this is what I mean by saying 3-point arc, guys. Now, this type of arc has another usage, guys. Let me set a line here on the red axis. Then I'm going to continue it on the blue one. I'm going to go on the green axis this time. And, well, maybe again upwards. Now, let's connect these two. All right, now I'm going to erase this part here. Now, again, I want an arc, but this time I want it to go through these points. So, because we have 3 points, we need to use a 3-point arc. Well, it is quite simple. 40 segments is good. Just click on the vertices. Done. Here we go. This will be the result. An arc without any specific course. It's kind of like it's floating in the space, in the air. Okay? All right, let's work on another example. Give me these lines and 3 courses. Okay. Now, activating 3-point arc again. Select the vertices like before. And done. And well, then we can remove the primary lines. Very useful. So guys, basically we have different types of arc, and the only thing that we need to know would be when to use which one. Okay? Alright guys, the next item is called pie. It works quite the same as arc. The only difference is that alongside an arc we'll get some edges, and as a result we'll get a face. Let me show you how it works. Again, I need a starting point, then a radius, give me 20 meters. And then I need to specify an angle. Give me 60 degrees, I guess. Yeah, good. See, not only we have an arc here, but also we have these edges, and the result, as I said a few seconds ago, would be this face. And again, we have some parameters, the same parameters as before in the entity info that we can control. Now, question is, where exactly we can use pi though? I'm going to set a line here by 30 meters, and then another one like this. I'm basically going to sketch a schematic plan here. I'm going to hold shift and align the endpoints. Now connect them to complete this face. Now guys, I'm going to use pi here to complete my plan with an arc like this. I'm going to remove these two lines. It's kind of like a trimmed out square here. Alright guys, the last usage that we have for arcs would be for creating chamfers. If you've worked with AutoCAD, you might be familiar with the concept of chamfers. Basically, through a chamfer, we would convert an angular form into a curved one. Now, question is, how we can do that in SketchUp though? Well, as I said, we can use an arc. I'm going to press A, and then for the side, I'm going to go with 2. By the way, this is the lowest number that we can go with for the sides. Now, first click here, and then before we do the second click, the line should turn purple again. Right, when we get the color, we can do the second click to create such a form here. I'm going to set a line from vertex to vertex like this. Then I'm going to remove this part. And now I can make sure that I have the same distance and from these 2 points, 13.18. And yeah, that would be how to use an arc to create chamfers in SketchUp. Alright guys, let's talk about the different shapes that we have in SketchUp. When we say shapes, we mean, for example, a circle. We can select circle either from this toolbar or from the draw tab. From shapes, we can select circle. And, well, there's also its shortcut key as well. We can press C on the keyboard. Now, when we activate the command, and well, by the way, it doesn't really matter how to activate the commands, but it's better to use the shortcut keys. When we activate the commands, just like what we had in arcs, first we need to specify the center point, and then also the number of segments. For example, I'm going to go with 30 segments. All right, after specifying the segments, or well, the sides, and as you can see, we have 30 sides now. We can go ahead and select a point as our center point. For example, I'm going to go with this point here. And then I need a radius. Give me 2 meters. All right. The result would be a circle like this. Now, I'm going to click on the edge of our circle and then, for example, set the number of segments on 100. And guys, as I said before, by increasing the number of segments in an object, we would in fact increase its smoothness, we can say. Now guys, take a look at this. I'm going to go with 3 as the number of segments, and the result would be this triangular form. And 4 would give me this rectangular form. Now what's interesting is that although we have a rectangular form here, we still have circle as the type. It doesn't really matter what number we use here. Like, for example, 5. The form would be this pentagon, but the type would still be a circle. Alright, guys. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set the number back on 48. And after that, I'm going to add some lines from the center point to this circle like this. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and select, remove everything except for this part. Now, if I select this edge and then check the entity info, we would see that for the type we have an arc. See? An arc with 12 segments. 48 divided by 4, 12. Okay? So the point that I'm trying to prove here is that we are able to create or extract different shapes out of a circle. Oh, and by the way, guys, for the number of segments, I actually recommend a number that could be divided by 4. This way, when we try to create another form, such as a quadrant, let's say, we won't be getting any deformities, any extra edges. Let me zoom in on this edge. As you can see, the line would be set here right on the edge completely accurately. And the same goes on this side, guys. Now, let me go with another number, guys, something that could not be divided by 4, for example, 25. Now, if I try setting another line here, the line won't be set right at the end point of this edge. Right, let me set another line on this side. And as you can see, we would be getting some small deformities. If we continue like this without paying attention to these small deformities and inaccuracies, later on they could become quite of an issue. They could become quite problematic. Alright, moving on. Just like in other commands, guys, when it comes to setting the circles, we would be able to specify the exact course in which we want to work. For doing so, I'm going to press C, and then, for example, I'm going to push down the left key. See? The course got changed. Okay, let's try another course, this time the right key. As you can see, we have this red circle now. Red circle on the red axis. Oh, and if I try setting a line here, guys, as you can see, the center point of this circle would also be specified as well. And well, this is actually quite useful during a sketching process. The next shape that we can talk about is called the polygon. Well, exactly like before, we can select that either from the toolbar or from the Draw tab and then Shapes, here, Polygon. And then exactly like what we used to do for circles, we just need a center point and then a radius, and we can basically create a shape like this. See? This is quite similar to circle, guys. Well, obviously, as before, if I select this edge, in the entity info, we would see some familiar parameters. For example, again, we have the number of segments, we have the radius, also we got the perimeter. So it says 5 times 6. And then if I click on the face, first we can see the type, face, and then also the area, 64 point something. Now, this is a polygon, so the segments are in fact our side lengths. I'm going to increase them to, let's say, 40. Obviously, by doing this, our shape would get closer and closer to a circle. However, as for the type, we still got a polygon. Guys, we are able to use a polygon for creating shapes such as triangle or rectangle, or we can say a square. Let me show this to you. Give me 3 sides. As you can see, we can create this triangle with the specific radius that we would set. And if I go with 4 segments or 4 sides, the result would be a square, as you can see. Now, guys, take a look at this. Around the schematic blue square that we're about to set, we would get a circle as well. We can say a peripheral circle, okay? Now, sometimes we want to set our shape as an inscribed one, and some other times, let's say we want to create a peripheral shape. In these 2 cases, we can actually use this circle, guys. You know what? Let me show you what I mean. If I press Control on the keyboard, actually, take a look at this. Down here in the hints, it says that our shape is being converted into an inscribed one. And then if I press Control one more time, it would become circumscribed. So as you can see, guys, I can easily change in between these 2 modes, and this technique is quite useful during our projects. For example, I'm going to set this rectangle here as a rhombus, and then if I press Control, I'll get this square. Let me show this to you. There we go, a complete square. Now we can use this technique for other polygons, guys. Let me just remove these shapes real quick. Now select polygon again, 5 sides as in a pentagon, and then give me an inscribed one. Now from the same center point, another pentagon, this time circumscribed and, well, smaller. And I can basically just go on like this. Again, inscribed, and then circumscribed. And basically, if I just keep on doing what I'm doing, the result would be this beautiful geometrical form, which we can actually complete even further by connecting the endpoints using these lines. This is actually quite common in architectural projects, guys. Alright everyone, let's talk about another shape, rectangle. As always, we can select it either from this menu or from the Draw tab. Then, from Shapes, we can select Rectangle. And as you can see, we have a shortcut for it as well, R. Now, I don't think I actually need to say this, but usually the most useful commands and items in the software have shortcut keys to them. And if we want to work faster, we need to get used to working with them, guys. Anyway, after activating the Rectangle command, first we need to select the first corner. And then after doing so, based on a specific diameter, we can create a rectangular form, just as you can see. And well, as for another thing, we would be able to specify the exact course or axis in which we want the rectangle to be set. For example, let's say we want to set the rectangle in the face perpendicular to the green axis. For doing so, I need to press the left key on the keyboard once. The result would be this, what we can say, vertical rectangle. If we wanted to do the same for the face perpendicular to the red axis, we need to press the right key this time. See? Just like this. Now guys, while we're trying to set the rectangles, we will get some hints. For example, golden section hint. A golden section or a golden rectangle, in other words, which we actually use a lot during architectural projects. Now, as for another hint, we can talk about the square hint. If we get our shape, our rectangular shape, close to a square, we would get the hint, see? And this way we can make sure that our shape is definitely a square. Now guys, what if we wanted to lock down on one of these shapes, for example, the golden section or square? Well, for doing so, we can just press and hold the Shift key, and then we would get this fixed up golden section form, for example. See, we won't be getting a square anymore. But what if we wanted to lock down on a square? Well, the technique is quite the same. Just press and hold the Shift key. See? Different sizes. We can create different sizes of a square. Anyways, when we're setting the rectangles, we are able to specify the exact width and length that we want. For example, give me 5 as the width, and then 10 as the length. And then to make sure, we can check the dimensions manually, 5 and 10. Let's try setting a vertical rectangle, again, 5, and 10. There we go. Alright guys, let's move on to our next point. Let's say we got a line here, such as this one. Now next up, let's say we want to set a rectangle or a square completely correspondent to this line, guys. If I just press R and try setting a rectangle here, as you can see, we won't be getting the correspondence that we wanted. Now guys, I'm going to press Control. And as you can see, immediately afterwards, the midpoint of the diameter and the endpoint of the line would become the same. See? And this is the correspondence that I wanted. And again, we can use some specific numbers for our side lengths. For example, this time give me a square, a 5 by 5 square. Well, more precisely, I mean 5 meters by 5 meters. Okay? Alright guys, moving on, the next item that we can talk about is called the rotated rectangle. Well, first off, exactly like all the other items that we talked about so far, we can either select this item from the large toolset menu here, or from the Draw tab. Then from Shapes, we can find and select Rotated Rectangle. When we say a rotated rectangle, we mean that we are able to specify angles, particular angles for our rectangles. Here's an example. Give me 150, yeah, for the length, for the angle, 30 degrees. See, the result would be this rectangle with 150 meters of length. And there's also an angle by 30 degrees in between the rectangle and the red axis. All right, now let's try going through another example. Say we got a triangle here, such as this one. Now, what I want to do here would be setting a rectangular face on this diameter, guys. For doing so, I'm going to select rotated rectangle again and try setting my first side length on the diameter here. Now, when I'm done, down here, as you can see, I'll get this black protractor. What does it mean, though? Well, guys, the protractor tells us that the diameter is completely perpendicular to the face in which the protractor is set. And now we can use this protractor to specify the exact angle that we want for setting the rectangle. Now, guys, as you can see, our current angle is 0 degrees, and as for the width, we got 60. So in other words, we'll be getting a rectangle with 60 meters of width and 0 degrees of an angle. See, this is exactly what I wanted. Now let's try setting another face up here this time. You know what? Let's crank it up a notch this time. I'm going to start from the midpoint. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to click on the midpoint. Then I'm going to move downwards. Again, we get this black protractor. This time, let's use different parameters. For example, 50 meters of width and 90 degrees of an angle. Right? Now let's add another face. I'm going to use this edge. Again with 90 degrees. And for the width, 60 meters. See? Very simple to work with, yet extremely useful, guys. Let's say we have a triangle here, a flat triangle, a triangle that is set on the ground. Say we want to add a face on its diameter. Again, I'm going to select rotated rectangle, select both endpoints, and this is 0 degrees, guys. If I set the angle on 90 degrees, I'll get this vertical face. Well, obviously, based on what we need, we can use either one. Let me specify the width, like 40 meters, yeah, and 0 degrees. Now I'm going to set the next face up here, again, 20 meters, this time with 90 degrees. Here we go. Done. Guys, when we're working with graphical softwares, one of the most important steps would be modifying and editing. In this session, we'll be discussing some of the modifying items that we have in SketchUp. Starting with Select, we can find its icon in the large tool set. And we also have it as the first item in our Tools tab. As you can see, in front of it, it says Space. Now, obviously, Space would be its shortcut. A shortcut that we can use for selecting. I'm going to set these lines here, and after I'm done, if I press space, this whole thing would be selected, okay? Well, more precisely, the selecting command would be activated, and we can click on the objects that we want. And if we press Control, we can select multiple items. Any face, any line, and basically anything that we want. For example, I'm going to press Control and select these faces, and as you can see, 3 faces are selected. Now, as you can see, these 2 faces are sharing a part. How we can subtract this part? How we can deselect this part? Well, to do this, I'm going to press Control-Shift and then click on the part that I want to deselect. See? Now, guys, up to this point, we saw that by doing a single click, the face would be selected. And now, if we do a double click, not only the face would be selected, but also the edges that we have around it would also be selected. Okay? We also have a triple click, guys. By doing a triple click, everything that, all the objects that are in contact with each other would be selected. Okay? Let me add another object here. And then, again, I'm going to do a triple click. See, this will be selected as well. Now, guys, what we have here is an arc with 22 segments. Let's say we only need to select like 3 segments of this arc. For doing so, first we need to explode the arc, and then we can select the edges separately. The entity info says that this is an edge. And now I can, for example, delete the selected edges. Okay? Next up, we can talk about the concept of selection boxes. When the select command is activated, by doing a click drag in our viewport, we would create a selection box. Now, we got 2 types of selection boxes. One would be from left to right, like this, and the other one would be from right to left. And as you can see, the forms or the boxes are different. Now, obviously, there's a difference in between these 2 types of selection boxes, and this is actually a common concept in between all the other graphical softwares. If I set the selection box from left to right, any object that would be set inside the frame or inside the box would be selected. In our current example, this face and these edges, okay? If I set the selection box from right to left, though, any object with contact with the box would be selected. I mean, the objects do not necessarily have to be set inside the box completely. Now, again, let's try selecting 3 of these edges here. For doing so, I need a selection box. I need to set a selection box from left to right like this. Now, obviously, if I were to set the selection box from right to left, though, not only these edges would have been selected, but also the face would have been selected as well. Now, guys, if you ever wanted to cancel a selection, we just need to simply find an empty space on our viewport somewhere and do a single click. And also, if I wanted to select everything, all the objects that I have in my viewport, I can use the shortcut key, Control-A. Well, I don't think I actually need to say this, because this is exactly the same in all the other graphical softwares. Well, take a look at this, guys. If I open up this tab, as you can see, for select all, we have the shortcut key, Control-A, or Control-T for select none. So, for example, if I select these objects here and then press Control-T, all of them would simply be deselected. It is exactly the same as doing a single click on an empty space in our viewport. Now, guys, we are also able to invert our selection as well. I'm going to select these, for example, and then I'm going to press Control-Shift and I, and immediately afterwards, all of my selections would be inverted. For example, I have selected this face, and now let's say I want everything else to be selected except for this face. Well, again, I'm going to press Control, Shift, and I. See? Now, for example, I'm going to select this common part. Again, I'm going to press Control, Shift, and I. And well, again, my selection would be reversed. Now, guys, we can also use Control, Shift when we are trying to set selection boxes. Let's see what they do. Let's say, for example, I want to select everything here, but I want to subtract this common part. I'm going to start with setting a selection box all around everything. Then I'm going to press and hold Control-Shift and set another selection box around this part. And just like this segment would be deselected. Guys, if we want to work as fast and also as accurately as possible, we need to be completely familiar with selection methods and selection boxes. In this session, we'll be discussing an extremely important item called push-pull. Now, before I start doing anything, I need a face. So I'm going to select polygon, 6 sides, this will do, a hexagon. Then I'm going to use a circle and create another hexagon, like this. Now, as I said, we're going to talk about push-pull. First off, we can find its icon here in the large toolset menu. And we can also find it up here in our tool tab. And it has a shortcut key, P. Now, this is an item that we would use a lot in projects in SketchUp, so it's better for us to get used to working with the shortcut key. Anyway, after activating the command or, well, the item, our cursor would become this, well, this box with a red arrow above it. And then what we can do using this item would basically be volumizing, guys. See, I can just select this face and pull it upwards. As you can see, the object would be volumized vertically or parallel to its normal vector. And we can also use specific numbers like, I'm going to go with 150. See, the result would be this 3D volumized form. Now, I'm going to activate the command again. This time, I'm going to pull this face upwards. I'm going to align these two, set them in the same height. Can you see the difference? This one is a polygon, and this one is a circle. The volumized object that we got out of the circle is softer. In the polygon, though, we still have the corners, we still have the edges. And now if I go ahead and from View activate Hidden Geometry, you'll see the edges in the circle as well. Now take a look at this. I'm going to press E, hold Control, and then try erasing the edges on the polygon. As you can see, it gets softer. If I deactivate Hidden Geometry again, as you can see, the forms are kind of the same. Now, I'm going to undo everything, Control Z, and then I'm going to activate Soften Coplanar. Take a look at this. The form that we got out of the circle got converted into the form that we got out of the polygon. So just remember, guys, when you're using push-pull on circles, if you wanted to see the edges, you need to use Soften Coplanar. Right, let's try working on another example, another polygon, this time with 16 edges. For the radius, give me 150. Now I'm going to pull this up. Give me a circle again with 16 side lengths or segments. And with the same radius. I want to talk about another difference, guys. What's interesting here is that we are able to use push-pull on the segments that we have in the polygon, guys. See? We can pull these segments out separately. However, this is not the case. We're not able to do this in this form. For this form. Well, more specifically, it won't work on the side segments. We are still able to do this on the top and bottom faces. However, if I go ahead and activate Hidden Geometry again, these edges would appear. Then again, I would be able to pull these segments out separately. Alright guys, that would be the difference when we are using push-pull on polygons and circles. Early on, I mentioned that we are able to use specific numbers and values when we are working with push-pull. These values could be saved in our software's short memory. For example, I'm going to pull this face upwards by 150 meters. Okay? Now, let's say we want the next shapes to be volumized exactly the same. For doing so, we don't really need to align everything or typing any numbers. We just need to do a double click. See? All the shapes would be volumized exactly the same, guys. Now, as for another thing, I'm going to do a right click on this face and select reverse. Now, I'm going to press P and do another double click on the face. Now, the shape would still be volumized the same, by 150 meters, but on an opposite course or axis. Yeah, this will be another important point to which we need to pay attention when we are working with push-pull. Let me work on another example. Now, take a look at this. These three shapes would be volumized upwards, but these two would be volumized downwards. This happened because the faces have different normal vectors to them, guys. Alright guys, perpendicular angles to the faces are called normal angles. And each face would have two normal angles. For example, this will be the top normal angle, and then this one would be the bottom one. Alright guys, obviously we have a rectangular face here, right? It means that we have 4 vertices in the corners. Now, as you can see, I'm trying to volumize. I'm volumizing this face using push-pull. What is happening here is that the 4 vertices would somehow be converted into edges, guys. Well, this is exactly the case in other shapes. For example, let's say we had 5 vertices. Like, I'm going to add this chamfer here. I'm going to use push-pull again. Right, as you can see, we have 5 edges now. And also we got 5 new side faces as well. And well, guys, as I mentioned early on in this very session, we are able to use push-pull separately on the side faces. For example, on this one, guys. See? You can easily pull it out. Now, guys, I'm going to add a diagonal line up here and divide this top face into 2 separate faces. Now, I'm going to push the smaller face downwards. The thing is, if the bottom face down here had the same normal angle as the one that I'm using for the pushing, this whole face would automatically be removed. Let me show this to you again. I'm going to add another diagonal line here and separate this face. Now, exactly like before, I'm going to push this smaller face downwards. What's the height? 61.30 meters. At this point, guys, it's kind of like, the face appears kind of unstable. It means that the face is about to be removed. Well, down here it says offset limited to 61.30 meters. Well, this would be the limit. We can't go further. And because the normal angles are parallels, this face would automatically be removed. Alright, as our next point, I'm going to set this vertical rectangle here. I'm going to use push-pull to volumize this by 20 meters to create a box such as this. Okay? Next up, I'm going to add another rectangle inside this box. An interior rectangle like this. I'm going to use push-pull again and push this in by 20 meters. See, just like this, we created an opening, guys. So, this would be another usage that we have for push-pull. And, well, actually, it is an extremely important one. You can create openings inside the objects. Now, let's go back again, Ctrl-C. What I'm going to do would be adding a diagonal line, this time up here, on the top face. Now, I'm going to push this face downwards all the way to the point that it would be removed completely. Alright, now, I'm going to add another rectangle, exactly like before. Now I'm going to use push-pull to push this rectangle inwards again. As you can see, we won't be getting the opening again. Why? Because the front face and the back face do not have parallel normal angles. In other words, the 2 faces are not parallels, so no openings. Now, how we can prevent this from happening, guys? Well, the answer is quite simple. Just make sure that you have parallel faces. Now, to do this, I need another line up here, and then exactly like before, I'm going to remove this face, and by pushing it down. After we did this, we can push this interior rectangle in and create our opening. Now guys, this whole item, push-pull and, well, the technique that we just talked about is extremely important and helpful when it comes to working on a sketching process. For example, I'm going to set this rectangle here, and then I'm going to add another one perpendicular to the first one. Well, you know what, let's set one with an angle, so I'm going to use rotated rectangle. Yeah, a rectangle here with a random angle, like this. Now, I'm going to remove the interior lines. Now, I'm going to use push-pull to volumize this form, like this. And then I can basically do whatever I want. For example, I'm going to divide this segment through a line, and then remove it, like this. And then I'm going to add another line and pull this whole thing out. Kind of like a balcony or something. Now let's try creating a void on this side this time. First, I'm going to use some lines again, like this. After we created the separate segment, we can push it in to create our void. Yeah, so basically, as you can see, we can create many different forms using some simple items in SketchUp. Now guys, while we're using push-pull, we can also use the control key on our keyboards. But the question is, what's going to happen if we do so? Well, let me show you. I'm going to volumize this form. Now, I'm going to hold the control key and pull the top face upwards. What's happening here is that we're creating an interior face, guys. If I hide this side face, you would see this interior face. Well, to be honest, guys, this ability, this technique is quite useful. Let me pull this face out this time. Then repeat the same process. I'm going to push this face in. There we go. I'm going to do the same on this bottom face down here. And then also I can remove all these edges in between the faces, guys, to get a one component shape. Now I can do a right click here and select reverse face. Now, what if we had two reverse faces? For example, a situation like this. Well, to modify this situation, we can do a right click and select orient face. This way, all the faces would be set on the same course. Next up, we can talk about aligning the objects using push-pull. For example, I'm going to pull this face upwards, and I don't really know what's the height here. I want the other objects to be aligned with this one. For doing so, I can just click on one of these edges. Now, let's try doing the same thing for the circle. I can use these snaps, guys. And guys, we can do this on other courses. For example, I'm going to pull this face outwards, and I want my alignment to be, created on the green axis. Again, I can use one of these snaps, guys. And again, for aligning this vertically, we can use a snap. So basically, guys, in SketchUp, we tend to use the snaps quite a lot. And one of the most common usages would be regarding creating the exact alignments that we want. Alright guys, in this session, we'll be discussing one of the most interesting and useful items or commands that we have in the entire software. We're going to talk about follow me. To be honest, guys, this command, this item could work miracles, and it's not even an exaggeration. I mean, if you learn to use this item properly, you would be working as professionally as possible. Now, let's see what this item exactly does for us. Let's say we have a simple face here, like a pentagon. Now, guys, previously we learned how to volumize the objects and faces using push-pull, and we said that when we use push-pull to volumize an object, they would be volumized based on or parallel to their normal vectors. We also said that normal vectors are perpendicular to the faces, and each face would have two of them, one in the top and another one in the bottom, or front and back. And when we use push-pull, the volumizing process, or we can even say extrusion process, will be done parallel to these vectors. Now, what if we didn't want this, guys? I mean, what if we wanted to volumize an object, volumize a face, but not parallel to the vectors? Well, entering the follow me command. In follow me, first we need to specify a path, and then we need to specify a face, and then that face will move through that path. Let me demonstrate, guys. For the path here, for volumizing this face, for the path, I'm going to go with an arc with 20 segments. I guess 20 segments will do, and for the radius, give me 10 meters. And then basically, I'm going to create a semicircle on the Z course, or on the Z axis. Yeah, this will do. I'm going to try selecting and using this arc as the path. I'm going to select follow me either from this menu or up here from the Tools tab, okay? And then I just need to click on the face. What has happened here is that the face was moved through the arc, through the path, and in the process created this beautiful volumized form. Now, what's interesting here is that if I try pulling these pentagons, these faces upwards, you'd see that the faces are not parallel, guys. See? They have this specific angle, and we don't really know what's the angle here. Now, question is, why this happened? Well, let's talk about it. I'm going to go back, Control-Z, and then I'm going to try reducing the number of segments that we have in the arc. Let's say 3. Then, I'm going to repeat the same process and use follow me to volumize the form. As you can see, guys, automatically the face was rotated and it became parallel to the vector underneath it. The thing is, the face couldn't be extruded within its previous angle or its previous condition. That's why the angle got changed. The angle automatically got changed. And then after this change, the movement was finally possible. So we can somehow claim that the path kind of works the same as a normal vector, but a vector that has several segments. And if I add more segments, for example, 40 segments, the angle at the endpoints would get closer and closer to 90 degrees. And that's why when we use follow me to volumize the form, the faces won't be parallel. We would get a small angle in between them, okay? Now, what if we wanted to make the faces completely parallel, though? Well, the solution is quite simple. We can just add a couple of lines right at the endpoints, manually, like this. Give me another one on this side. Done. And now it's time to use follow me again to volumize the form. By the way, guys, we need to select the entire path as a one component shape. For doing so, we can either use Control or we can use a double click. And, well, I actually recommend using a double click, guys. Anyway, after selecting the path, we can activate the command, follow me command, and click on the face. There we go. Now, if I try pulling the faces upwards, you'll see that they are completely parallel and they are moving right under the Z-course. This happens due to those additional lines that we set. Now, take a look at this from view. I'm going to activate hidden geometry. And when I do this, you would be able to see all the newly created segments, guys. See, it's kind of like these faces, these pentagons are being extruded one by one, one after another, sorry. Okay? Now, guys, let's talk about some other usages that we have for this command. I'm going to add a vertical rectangle here. And then I'm going to try volumizing it quite randomly. Next up, I'm going to select this edge, do a right click, and click on Divide. I'm going to divide this by 5. Now, I'm going to set some lines from each vertex, guys, to create 5 different or separate segments. Okay. Now, let's try using push-pull again. For example, I'm going to push this one in by 2 meters. For the second one, 1.60. 1.20 for the third one, then 80 cm for the fourth one, and then instead of pushing in, I'm going to pull the last segment out like this. Yeah, we can say that this is some sort of a staircase or something. Next up, I'm going to move my cursor on this face here, then I can either use copy from up here or I can use Control-C. After copying the face, I'm going to do a triple click and remove the whole thing. Next up, I'm going to open up this tab and select Paste in Place. We could have used Control-V as well, and if we did, we would have been able to set this object basically wherever we wanted. But to be honest, most of the times, like 90% of times, we just need to paste an object in its previous place. So that's why we have this option here, paste in place. Anyway, guys, back to our own work. We have successfully extracted this face. Now let's try extruding it on a curved path. For doing so, I need an arc here, starting from this point on the red axis by 8 meters. For the radius, 2 meters. Now, from its endpoint, let's try setting another arc, guys. Wait for the arc to turn blue. Then, on the green axis, set the next one by 3.5 meters. Alright, this will be our path. Select. Now select follow me. And then, as always, just like before, select the face. This will be the end result, and the only thing that we need to do would be reversing all the faces. We know how to do this, guys. We just need to do a triple click to select everything, and then right click, and then select reverse face. All done. Now take a look at this, guys. If I do another paste in place, we would realize that the face has actually changed course. In other words, it has become perpendicular to the arcs, to the path. And also, guys, as for another thing, the length in the last step has gotten shorter. It has gotten reduced. Let me show this to you. I'm going to check the dimension here. It says 2 meters. But the dimension that I got here is 1.33. This trimming was another modification that was automatically applied by the software itself. So we need to consider this as well. Let's talk about another usage of follow me. Again, I'm going to set another vertical rectangle here. Now, I'm going to add a diagonal line on this face like this. Now, I'm going to remove this part. Now I'm going to set an offset here by 20 cm. Kind of like a thickness that we have in walls. Then I'm going to remove the interior face. Now, I can use push-pull here to create this, let's call it tunnel. However, I'm going to use follow me here. From the midpoint, I'm going to set this line, say by 50 meters. Then I'm going to move towards this side, this time by 9 meters. Then another 9 meters. Now I'm going to attach these two endpoints. Now remove this part. And then from this endpoint, add another line. 20 meters. I'll be using this whole thing as my path. Follow me and select the face. Seems quite complex, but it was extremely simple as we just saw. Okay? Now let's try elevating the path, guys. For example, 2 meters here. Then here, 6 meters. I'll remove the bottom part. Select these 3 edges as the path. Follow me, and then select the face. See, we used follow me to create another tunnel, another void, whatever you want to call it, but this time it is an elevated one. Well, more specifically, the path or our form is gradually elevated, as you can see. Guys, the thing is, we can't really use follow me for creating ramps. Why? Because our main section, our main profile might actually change. So yeah, that is why in architectural projects, we can't really use this item or this command for creating ramps. Do not worry though, guys. Later on, we'll be introduced to some plugins that we can use to create the ramps or to solve this problem. Now, I'm going to press Ctrl-Z and go back all the way to this point. I'm going to try converting the path into a more smooth one. For doing so, I can use an arc. 20 segments will do. By the way, this isn't something new, guys. We talked about this plenty before. Done. After we're done with our trimming, we can select the path again. By the way, guys, make sure that you're selecting the entire path. Do not miss a segment. You know what? We can even do something easier. We can either do a double click here or a triple click on the line on the path, and then Control Shift, do another double click on the face here to deselect it. Now select Follow Me and click on the face. Nicely done. Later on, we can even convert this whole thing into a very beautiful structure. You know what? Let's actually try that right now. Yeah. For example, let's try adding some windows, some openings. Or we can even try changing the form a bit more. Like, for example, I'm going to add a line here. And then another one at this point. Now let's remove this middle part. Okay. Then let's try moving this part a little bit forward. I'm going to try aligning this whole thing as best as I can. The thickness was 20 cm. Hold the Shift key and set another line here. And we can remove this part. Now, exactly like before, first a triple click, then deselect the face, and then use Follow Me. Very nice. As I said, guys, the form appears quite complex, but in reality, it was, well, quite simple to create. And obviously, guys, we're not done. We can always do more. We can always add more modifications. I mean, as I mentioned before, we are quite free to apply basically any modifications that we want. For example, let's try removing the floor here. First, I'm going to remove this. Then, I'm going to use eraser and erase these faces. As you can see, only the path remains. Next up, let's try adding another window, another opening. Again, I'll be adding another line perpendicular to this edge. And then another one here. I'm going to select this path. Then activate Follow Me and click here. And the result would be another beautiful opening. I just need to erase this part. Now let's try adding another window, another opening on a different axis. A couple of lines like this. Then erase the extensions. Then again, select the path, Follow Me, and click here. Another opening, but it's a little bit different from the previous one. Next up, I'm going to try setting some lines here, guys, like this. And then another diagonal one like this to create a face, a triangular face. By the way, guys, this is just a simple sketching process, so for now, just do not mind the dimensions. Later on, we'll be discussing the dimensions as well, though. Now, I'm going to use some arcs again to make the path softer. Then remove the extra parts. Alright, good. Select the whole thing. Press F. I'm going to move downwards by 40 cm this time. Then close down the endpoints to complete this face. Now, right from this endpoint, let's try adding some more lines. And maybe a diagonal one here. Like this. So I want some sort of an angle. Okay. This will be our path. Now if we try volumizing the face, the result would be this beautiful, complex, and, well, organic form. But, well, creating it was a piece of cake. Right, now let's try doing the same thing, but with a softer path. As you know, we're using an arc. Well, I mean, a couple of them, more precisely. Now again, select the entire path, Follow Me, and click on the face. Nicely done. We just used some simple items in SketchUp without using any specific items or plugins. Again, guys, we just need to know where to use which item. That's it. Alright guys, moving on. Our next point would be quite useful for those of you who are interested in interior designing. For example, when we want to design a kitchen, like or a part of a kitchen, like a cabinet door. You know what? Let's go through an example. I'm going to start with a rectangle here, and then I'm going to extrude it like this. Next up, give me an interior offset, a bit smaller. Now let's push the interior face inwards like this. And this will be our door. Next up, we can start setting some lines on our main axis to create some sort of a profile, guys. As you can see, I'm using some lines on the axis to create a profile like this. I'm going to connect this endpoint, and yeah, I guess this will do for our profile, for our pattern. Now, next up, I'm going to select the interior face. Then I'm going to activate Follow Me and click here. As you can see, just like this, we can create a pattern. We can always change this. Control Z. And then from this endpoint, I'm going to set another line and connect it to the midpoint of this face. I'm going to continue these lines, to create this triangular form and remove this part. Good. This will do. Now we can select the interior face, Follow Me, and click here. All done. Simple, fast, and well, quite beautiful. Right. Now again, let's go back, Control Z, and let's try adding more detail. For example, we can add some arcs. So I'm going to press A and try adding some arcs to the corners. Or we can even use pi, guys. Remember pi? We talked about it before. Set this on 20 and set a pi here. Okay, now let's remove the extra parts. Select the interior face, Follow Me, and click. Awesome. Next up, I'm going to try designing a Roman base or a Roman leg. Again, I'm going to start with setting this rectangle here. Then I'm going to volumize it like this. Then next up, I need to add some sort of a curve, maybe something like a circle or even an arc here, let's say. After we added the arc, again, we can start setting some lines on our axis. Let's create another pattern. You know what, I'm going to use another line here to create some sort of a chamfer as well. And you know what, maybe another one down here. Basically, I'm trying to add more detail. Now take a look at this. I'm going to select this face, Follow Me, and click here. See what happened? Again, let's select Follow Me and click on these parts. See? Just like this, we can create these beautiful Roman designs. And we're going to talk about these designs later on even more. Alright, let's see what else we can do. For adding more detail, maybe we can add a chamfer down here. So let's add this line to the base, or on the base, then Follow Me and click on the face. Now let's try adding another one in the middle. Click here, done. Honestly, this design is quite professional, guys. Next up, I'm going to add an offset up here on the top face. Then I'm going to push the interior face in to create a void, and this whole thing can be used as a columns base. Remember guys, such designs would appear very beautiful in the renders and exports. That's why we tend to use them a lot. Next up, let's try adding more detail inside of the space. Or we can, no, let's actually do that first. Let's say, for example, this is a decorative object or something. How we can do that? I'll begin with hiding this top face first. And then I'm going to try using some lines here on different axes to create another face. Like this one, I guess. Next up, I'm going to add another line, a diagonal one. So I want to create a chamfer down here. Good. Next up, we can select all the lines I want to use for the path one by one. After we did that, we can click on Follow Me, or we can use Follow Me. And the result would be another detail, another design we can say, but this time an interior one. Exactly what I wanted. Now let's set everything back or unhide everything. Good. Another usage for Follow Me would be for creating some specific geometrical forms such as spheres or pyramids. Alright, so let's say we got a schematic triangle here. Yes, this will do. And I'm going to try converting this into a cone. For that, I need a circle. Need more segments though, like 100 segments. Okay, good. Now let's remove the interior face. Select this as the path. Follow me and click here. See, we got our cone, guys. Now, one thing that we need to consider is the fact that the radius of the circle is not a factor, because the more important role is being played by the angle, which is 360 degrees. And also our schematic triangle is being set exactly at the center point. Now, let's try moving this a little bit. For example, like this. And then I'm going to remove these extra parts. Same path, but this time different profile. And due to this point, as you can see, the result would be completely different than before. Alright, good. Now let's go back and try reducing the size of our circle, guys. We can even make it larger, guys. It doesn't really matter though, because as I said, the size or the radius of the circle is not a factor. See, we would get the exact same result as before. So basically, these would be some simple yet very important points that we need to consider. Now let's try adding more detail to this, guys. For example, I'm going to add a line up here, then maybe an interior offset, and then I'm going to add 2 more lines down here on the blue axis. And I'm going to remove the mid part like this. Good. Now let's select the path again. Follow me and check the result. Alright, very good. Basically, guys, what you can do using this item completely depends on your own creativity. For example, next up, let's try creating or designing a dome. For doing so, I'm going to use an arc. A 2-pointed arc that we discussed before, actually. So you're familiar with it. I guess this will do. Now let's erase the extra parts. Good. Now select the path, follow me, and done. Now, this is a solid object, guys. How we can make it hollow? For doing so, I need an offset, an interior offset like this. Then again, I can remove the extra parts. And, well, the rest is history. Select the path, follow me, and click on the face. See? This is even more realistic, guys. Let's make this interesting. I'm going to activate hidden geometry. And when I do this, you would get access, you would have access to all of its hidden edges. And by the way, due to the number of segments, our dome is quite soft. Right, moving on, guys. I'm going to add some lines to this triangle here. Give me a perpendicular line to the diameter for the length 20 meters. Alright, good. Now I can remove the rest of the lines here. I don't need them. Then I'm going to use an arc here to get rid of this corner. Now let's select this whole thing. Press F. Add an offset. Close down the endpoints to create a face. Alright, all good. Now I'm going to select the circle as the path. Then use follow me to create a form, a structure, or basically whatever you want to call it. Now, guys, remember, sometimes we might be working with a path that is not a circular one. Like, for example, let's say our path is a hexagon. Let me reduce the segments to 6. Select the path and use follow me. See what happened? Now guys, we actually use this technique a lot. Like for example, we might be doing this for creating several modular forms and then, for example, fill up an area or a space using these structures. Now guys, to make this form even better, I'm going to try making the lines that I have here visible. I'm going to do a triple click and then I'm going to change the soften here to make these visible, as you can see. Oh, and by the way, now I need to reverse all of these faces, guys. So I just need to do a right click and select reverse face. Alright guys, in this session, we're going to see how we can set or create 3D sketches in SketchUp. I'm going to begin with setting a rectangle here, and for the dimension, give me 6 by 12 meters. Let's extrude it by 3 meters. Next up, I'm going to add another line here, right in the middle, and then move the line upwards by 4 meters. I'm going to create some sort of a roof here. Now, select the whole thing, Control G, and then to make the form better, I'm going to move the roof downwards by 2 meters. Good, this will do. Now, let's get a copy. Then, I'm going to rotate this by 90 degrees. And maybe moving it a little bit. Now, as you can see, I have some handles. I'm going to use, for example, this one to reduce the size a little bit. Good. Now, let's try relocating this again, for example, a little bit upwards and then 2 meters towards this side. Alright, it seems like we got an alignment up here, so I'm going to align the floors as well and use push-pull. So you kind of got a structure in which 2 roofs are combining, or actually are merging, we can say. I'm going to use push-pull here again. Now, select them both and union. This way we can get a completely one-component solid object. Now, take a look at this, guys. If I hide this face, you'd see that we got no floors, no walls. It's kind of like the structure. This whole structure has been created out of paper. We only have some faces created out of some connected edges. So, let's try changing that, guys. First, I'm going to start with adding some thickness to the roof by 40 cm maybe. Or 30 will do, I guess. Now, I'm going to trim this part out of this one. Now we've got a volumized roof here, and we can even give this a material. Now, another thing that we can add to our roof would be some sort of a protrusion. For creating such a form, I'm going to select this face first, copy, Control C, then paste in place, then an interior offset by 60 cm. Now, select the interior face, Control C, remove the rest. Now again, edit, paste in place. Now, pull this whole thing upwards. Let's make this a group. And then next up, I can use intersect. See, this way we can create the protrusion that we wanted, or we can even say the nosing. Now, we can work on creating the walls. First, select this face, Control C, paste in place again. Give me an offset for the thickness 20 cm. Now remove the exterior part again. Select this face using push-pull all the way to here. Make this a group and subtract it out of the whole form. All done. Now we can work on this one, this structure. The process is the same. Control C, paste in place, set the offset, remove the exterior part, use push-pull, then make this a group and subtract it out of the form. As you can see, we have floors, walls, and roofs. Now let's try making this even better. For example, I'm going to move the floor upwards by 50 cm. And then do the same for the bottom face. Yeah, this is better. Next up, I'm going to select this and move it backwards by maybe 2 meters. And then I'm going to do the same for this part. Yeah, this kind of works better. Next up, let's add a room inside the structure. For doing so, I need to set a box here. I need to create a box. Let's volumize it a little bit, like this. I need to create a roof for this, parallel to this line, guys. Move the cursor on this line. When we see this purple color, it means that we got what we wanted. It would be completely parallel. Hold Shift, set this line here, create the face, and use push-pull. Right, I got the form that I wanted for the structure. Now let's try adding the roof itself. Make this a group first, Control G. Then move this upwards by 30 cm. And then let's do some trimming. Add the material. Right, what else? We can create that protrusion as before. So, select, copy, paste in place, then set the offset. Remove the exterior parts, use push-pull, upwards, Control G, and use intersect again. All done. Now guys, we need to create an opening in the roof. For doing that, I can trim this part. And I need to do the same for this wall. So select and trim. I'm going to move this whole thing out to show you the opening. See? Oh, and by the way, guys, this whole thing should be converted into a wall as well. So I'm going to select this. Control C. Am I doing this correctly? Yeah. Paste in place. Now set the offset 20 cm inwards. Remove the exterior parts. Push-pull. Upwards. Control G. And cut it out of the form. Subtract it out of the form. Now move this whole thing upwards to align it with the floor. Then I need to recreate this floor here. I'm going to press L and activate Edge. And I'm going to use some edges, set some edges to complete this face again. And then P, set this whole thing back. Right, another line here, another face, And then pull the face out. Good. Very nice. What else we can do? Maybe we can get rid of this part. So I'm gonna create another face here. Use push-pull and extrude this like this. Select the whole thing, Control G, and then subtract it out of our structure. And then I'm going to unionize these two walls. And as you can see, in just a few minutes, we created we can say a model for a structure. And if we check the entity info, we would see that this is in fact a solid object, guys. This is very important. Oh, let's try adding another detail, maybe a chimney. So, I'm going to set a box, create a box. Basically, guys, I'm trying to tell you that we are quite free to set or create whatever we want. Okay, I'm going to create my chimney here. Now, select the whole thing, Control G, and then again, subtract it out of our structure. You know what, let me just try to control its size and dimensions a little bit better. Okay, good. Now, select Ctrl G. Oh, we already did that, sorry. Let's just subtract it out of our structure. Done. Now select this top face, Ctrl C. Then again, paste in place. Set the interior offset, again by 20 cm. Then use push-pull again. Now select Ctrl G and subtract. Very nice. Okay, what else? Oh, I need to create another face here, another floor. And then this part should be removed as well. And I'm basically going to do what I did earlier. Another face. Then I'm going to use push-pull. Ctrl G. Then subtract out of the structure. Good. And I guess I need to do the same thing here as well. First, create the face. Extrude it using push-pull. Then Ctrl G and subtract out of the form. Now let's unionize the walls. Again, guys, we are basically free to do whatever we want to do. For example, let's create another slope up here. For creating this slope, I'm going to set this diagonal line up here, wait for it to turn purple. Then set this line. Again, extrude it using push-pull, Ctrl G, and then we need to subtract the box out of our chimney. Now, as for another detail, let's try adding a roof here. For doing so, I'm going to select the face and move it upwards by 30 cm. Then I'm going to use some lines to complete the face. As you can see, we have a lot of flexibility when it comes to sketching in SketchUp. Now, right-click on this face and select Orient Face. Now, Ctrl G, then press B to add the materials. Then we can move this upwards by 50 cm, for example. All right, good. What else we can do? Well, maybe we can reduce the height here, guys, a little bit. I'm going to select this and move it downwards by, again, 50 cm. Yeah, this is better. Now let's move the roof downwards as well. Later on, we can add some attaching items to attach the roof to the structure. All right. Let me hide this extension for a second. What I want to do would be expanding or enlarging this wall a little bit. So I'm going to select it and use push-pull to pull this out by, for example, 1 meter. Like this. Now up here, I'm going to add a line or an edge to complete a face. Then let's try extruding the face using push-pull again. I'm going to try aligning it as best as I can with this edge. Okay, what's happening here? But let's actually do something else. I don't really like this form, so let me try something else. Yeah, I'm going to try changing this. For doing so, I'm going to select this face first, as well as this one. Now, I'm going to move these out, guys, and I'm going to hold the Control key to get a copy simultaneously. Let's pull this out by 1.5 meters, maybe. Yeah, this will do. Now, Control X, then paste in place. Now, again, we can use some edges to create this face. And now these parts would be extra, and we can obviously remove them. We don't need them anymore. Now I'm going to extrude this face by 20 cm. After we're done, we can select this and press Ctrl G. Now M, let's move it to the other side. And after that, we can select them both and unionize them. Now, I'm gonna try extending this line, guys. I'm gonna add another edge from the endpoint here. And then do the same for this side. Basically, I'm creating another face up here. Again, we can remove the extra parts. Now select, Ctrl G, and then we can move this to the other side. Exactly the same process as before. At the end, union. Nicely done. Now we can select this face and move it upwards, up to this point, to fill up the gap that we have in between these walls. And then I can do the exact same thing for the front part down here. I'm going to select and move this face forward. Though I forgot to select the face, the back face here. So let's try this again. M, and move them forward. As you can see, we have some extra edges that we can remove. Now let's unhide everything. Unhide last, more precisely. The roof would become visible again. Now we can select it and move it upwards. And for example, set it here, I guess. Did I do this correctly? Yeah. Now, I can select this face and move it down. Like this. As you can see, we completed the slope that we wanted. Now, let's do the same up here. Should be extended from the top part as well. I guess this will do. Maybe we can move this just a little bit downwards though. Yeah, like this. Good, everything seems fine. Next up, we can add an opening, guys. For doing so, we can just select this face, Ctrl C, paste in place, set the interior offset by 20 cm again, remove the exterior parts, push-pull on the interior face. Now select, Ctrl G, and then subtract out of the 4. Right, let's take a look at what we did, guys. As you can see, we created a very beautiful, and we can even claim a complex model of a structure. Good. Another thing that we can do, guys, would be adding some profiles or creating some profiles for doors and windows. For doing so, I'm going to start with setting an edge here to complete this face. Now Ctrl X, then paste in place. And give me a small offset by 6 cm maybe. Now select, Ctrl C or even Ctrl X. Now P, push this in by 6 cm. Good. Now select, Ctrl G, then M. Let's move this inwards by 5 or 10 cm. And then we can give this a dark colored material. Alright, good. By the way, guys, now that I'm looking at this, I think we can reduce the height here a little bit. So I'm going to try selecting these walls. Okay. And then we can move them downwards by, I guess, 40 cm will do. And then we can do the same for the roof above it. Yeah. Honestly, this is better. Now, guys, if you recall, we cut a face here. We used Ctrl X. Now, I'm going to go ahead and select paste in place real quick. Now, let's move this in by 10 cm. Then we can give this face a small thickness, like 0.2 maybe. Then we can select this, Control G. Now I'm going to use inverse selection here, guys, to hide everything else. Then again, I'm going to use some edges to create some profiles. Okay. Select, Control G. Let's move this to the other side. Then I need to divide this whole thing maybe by 10. Yeah, this is good. Next up, I need some horizontal profiles as well. I'm going to use one of the vertical ones, Q to rotate it. And then I'm going to press S because I need to extend its length a bit. Good. Now M. Let me see what's happening. Okay. I need to move this upwards all the way to, let's say, this point. Now, I forgot to get a copy. Let me do this again. Now, let's divide this by 5. All right, the result would be this grid. Now, let's select everything except for the face, unionize everything, and then at the end, I'm going to use split. Now, we can remove these extra parts. Good. Now let's add a glass material, sorry. And then I need to reduce its thickness. Let me zoom in on this. Let me try to do this as precisely as possible. Okay. Good. Now, for the profiles, let's go with a dark colored material. So I'll do, and hide everything else. Everything seems fine, as you can see. The profiles are completely one component, but the glass is completely separate from that. Now we can kind of do the same thing for this side, guys, but before that, I need to reduce the length in this roof here a little bit. So I'm going to move this backwards, like this. I guess all the way to this point will do. Yeah, good. Now, exactly like what we did before, let's add an edge to create this face. Then we can select it, Control X, paste in place, set an offset, again by 6 cm. Select the interior face, Ctrl X, push pull by 6 cm. Now select, Ctrl G, B to add the material. Then push this in or move this in a little bit. And again, paste in place to set back the face. Then we can move this a little bit. P, move this by 2 cm. Or maybe more though, like by 5 cm. Yeah, this is better. Now, Control G, select inverse selection, and hide everything else. Now, exactly like before, we need to design our profiles. Starting from this point, move it all the way down. Good. Control G, M, from this point, move it to this corner. Divide it by 5. Then again, we need to rotate one of them by 90 degrees. Set it down here. Then select it from this point and move it upwards all the way to here. And then again, divide it by 5 to create another grid. Now again, unionize all the profiles and split them out of our form. Okay, let me see what's happening. I think I need to apply some modifications up here, yeah. Good. Now once again, select all of them and union and split again. After we're done, remove the extra parts, add the glass material, and then reduce the thickness. Good. Now add the material to the profiles themselves, and once again, unhide everything else. Awesome. You can add more profiles if you wanted to as a practice. Now I can go ahead and create a section. If I set my section and move through the structure, you'd see that all the components, all the items are set and combined together quite perfectly. Everything is well distinguished and got no problems. And again, guys, you can always do more. You can always add more details. As another example, I can select this roof and move it upwards by, let's say, 10 cm. Now let's do some trimming and give this a color. Basically, guys, what I'm doing at the moment is adding more layers to my work. Okay, let's do the same here. Again, 10 cm upwards. And then trim one more time. All right, let me just do this real quick for this side. All good. As for another detail, guys, we can add shadows here. And by doing this, I can claim that I'm done with my modeling process. We created this beautiful model of a structure. It was quite simple and it didn't take us a long time. Alright guys, after we're done with adding these details, after we're done with our sketching process or creating our architectural model, we can go ahead and add some structural elements such as beams and columns. This way we can make this whole thing even more realistic. I'm going to select and move this yellow part out of my model by 20 meters. And don't forget to get a copy. Next up, I'm going to set a vertical rectangle here representing a beam. Now for the thickness, I'm going to go with 15 cm and then I'm going to extend this like this. I'm going to apply the expansion on both sides actually. Good. Now select Ctrl G, then move it to the other side of the building and divide this, let's say, by 9. However, guys, remember, when we are creating the beams, when we are setting the beams, we need to set them based on the openings that we have. For example, I can remove this one and set a beam right on the opening here. Then again, I need to select this one, press M, and move this to where we have the opening. Good. And I should move this to the midpoint, to the mid part, sorry. So I need to select this and move it right on the green course to the mid part. And if I wasn't able to do this, I can press K. Now let's lock this on the green course and set it right over here. Now press K again to turn off the back edges. And well, seems like this one is extra actually. Now let's set the rest of the beams based on the opening that we have here, MX3. Now let's see how many we want on this side. I guess one will do. Yeah, good enough. We need another type of beam, guys. So I'm going to select one. I should be going with a smaller thickness, but I'm not going to do that. For this example. So let's just rotate one of these by 90 degrees. Let's set the main one right here at the midpoint. And then I can use this one to add the rest of them. Hold Shift, move. Oh, and don't forget to press the Control key as well, because we need a copy. Divide by 2, for example, or even 3. Yeah, this is good. Now we can do the same on the other side. 3 beams on the other side of the main one. Now X3, I guess this will do. Let me see. Or maybe X4. Yeah, I think everything is covered up, guys. Yeah. Now, next up, we need to select all the beams and unionize them. After we're done, we can split all the beams with our roof. Then we can remove the extra parts. And that would be all, guys. We created these structural elements for our model, sorry. And let's try giving this whole thing a material, maybe a distinguishable color, something different. Let's see what we have. Yeah, not bad. Now that we're done, we can set this back in our model. Now, guys, we can claim that the roof of our model contains structural elements as well. And the thing is, if we go ahead and set another section or check our model using another section, it would be even better than what we saw before, guys. Let me show you what I mean. Let me demonstrate. Set this section here. Okay, let's move the section through the structure. This is awesome, guys. All the structural elements, all the layers, and all the details basically are completely and perfectly visible. Let's use another section, set another section, this time from the bottom. What I'm trying to do here would be giving you a top view to check the details even better. See? We successfully used solid tool items to create or set structural elements for a roof, guys. And now if I go ahead and hide all the roofs here one by one, you would be able to see these structural elements even better. And I can even hide these items to check the rest of the components. Yeah, guys, overall, everything seems perfectly fine, and this model is completely ready for a phase 2 process.